Welcome to Five or Flop, a podcast for the best and worst historical fiction has to offer. I'm your host, Erin.
And I'm Grace, and each week we'll be reading a different historical fiction play to see if they're a five or a flop.
Our theme for season 6 is All the World's a Stage, and this week we're reading Saint Joan by George Bernard Shaw.
Another titan of playwrights.
Yes, absolutely. We kind of have some heavy hitters this season.
Both in terms of like the fame of the authors and also in terms of the percentage of our plays that we realized are about Catholic persecution.
Yeah, honestly, which apologies, we usually try to do a little bit better about our subject matter being varied. Didn't do that at all.
No, I think in this case we were just like, oh, Galileo and Joan of Arc, very different. And we were correct about that. They're very different. And then we didn't think one step beyond that.
No, not at all. Which is fine. We said at the start of the season, it's what we can get our hands on, and this is what we could get our hands on.
Exactly. So, with that glowing review to begin, Erin, how have you been doing?
I have been pretty busy lately, but I recently took some time and played some tennis with some friends.
That sounds delightful. I miss playing tennis.
I know. Which we might have either been in season 1 or have not yet started the pod. Back when me and Santiago were in our big tennis kick a couple years ago, I don't remember if there was overlap. But we used to play tennis. Back when I lived with Kat, we lived across the street from a tennis court. So we would play all the time. Because if you're across the street and you wind up having to wait / not being able to get a court, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Now when you either have to walk or drive somewhere, it's a big deal. So we've really fallen off with tennis. But I played with some friends this weekend and I forgot how much fun it is.
It's great fun, and it's a good workout, and you just feel like a little bit better than other people.
Yeah, my friend, he put it a good way. He was like, this is one of like your quarter life crisis options. Like you can run, you can pickleball, you can tennis. And I think those are like the big 3 sports you pick up. Or in our friend group, cycling.
And I feel like tennis falls in a good middle ground between like running and cycling and pickleball.
I think so too.
Yeah. Well, wonderful.
But yeah, no, it was a good time. It was a good time, and it was not super hot out, which is nice because we've had a couple really hot days. But God. We went early, and it was pretty cloudy, so no sunburns here.
Beautiful.
What have you been up to? Speaking of potential sunburns.
Yes, I managed to escape without any.
Thank
luckily,
God.
Yes, but I spent a relaxing weekend at the beach. I needed it so bad.
Good.
Yes, so it was just me and my mom. Got some good reading done by the pool.
Perfect. Was Saint Joan one of the items?
I actually managed to finish it prior to leaving.
I was going to say, we had discussed this could be like, what was it, Johnny Tremaine that you read on the beach, which you should not have read on the beach?
No, exactly. No, I managed to finish it before leaving, which I was happy about, A, because it's not a beach read.
Yeah.
But also, B, then I could just get away with only bringing my Kindle to the beach.
And you would have looked so pretentious if you were sat up on the beach reading Saint Joan.
No, honestly. It would have been good advertising for the pod, but slightly embarrassing.
Yeah, but at what cost to your personal reputation?
Yeah.
Anyways, is the book that you're here to discuss now, that's not Saint Joan, something you read on the beach?
It was something that I read in transit when I was away for the weekend prior to going to the beach. But it was actually really good. So it's the biography of Pamela Churchill Harriman. Okay. It's called Kingmaker by Sonia Purnell, I think is her name. But she was a very interesting figure. She was Churchill's daughter-in-law. Mm-hmm. And then later in life, she was obviously British. And then she was kind of both like a famous courtesan and like a famous political figure. Okay. Like she was Bill Clinton's ambassador to France randomly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So she lived a very long and interesting life. So if you're a biography reader, I would recommend this one.
I'm really not like, I can't say that I don't like biographies. I don't know if I've ever given a biography a shot. Like, I would tend towards memoir.
I'm not a huge biography reader, but I feel like I think I read them more than I realize that I do.
Okay. I wonder if anyone would be interested in doing an analysis of all the pod episodes to see if you've ever talked about a biography before.
Maybe. We have all the scripts. I could go back and look at them.
We could easily do that.
What about you? I actually don't recognize this title.
Well, you should, because it's the reason I wanted to go to the Gaithersburg Book Festival.
Oh, yeah.
All the World Can Hold is written by Jung Yoon, who was one of my professors at GW for creative writing. I believe I had her for fiction writing or intermediate fiction writing. There is a difference. But anyways, I loved her. I really enjoyed her first book. I think it was Shelter. Very, very different subject matter. That was like kind of about the aftermath of, if I'm remembering correctly, either like a murder or an assault case. some type of criminal case. And then this one is about she said it was a semi-autobiographical fiction. Sorry, not you. She said it was a semi-autobiographical. She said it was a semi-autobiographical fiction. I pronounced it wrong no matter how many times I tried that. We're keeping it in. That takes place on a cruise ship in the immediate aftermath of 9/11,
Yes.
which she herself and I believe her family, as she said at the book festival, were on a cruise immediately after 9/11, which is kind of a crazy place to be, having just been on a cruise myself, because like, also just imagine you're cut off from everything in 2001 right after 9/11.
No, that's crazy.
No contact at all. So far it is very good. It's also a like TV reunion cruise.
Okay.
For like this show that was set on a cruise. I don't know.
Okay.
I can't really describe it. I have to assume it's like Love Boat, but I haven't seen Love Boat, so I don't know if that's an accurate reference point for the show I'm, describing. Mm-hmm. But anyways, it's quite good so far. I'm 150 pages in, and I'm really enjoying it. But, however, I did make a pitch for that to be a future Pod Books episode. I was told by Grace that was considered too contemporary fiction, which if it was any other book I didn't have like a personal attachment towards reading, I would have said the same myself.
Yeah. We just have to keep the pod going for like 20 more years, and then we can read it.
No, it'll still be contemporary.
Wait. You're right. Sorry.
How many times have we had
to start a new podcast?
How many times have we had to explain to our friends the difference between historical and contemporary? Yeah, on our contemporary spinoff.
Okay, then good.
Book number 1.
We have a deal.
All right, Saint Joan.
All right, here is the synopsis. With Saint Joan, which distills many of the ideas Shaw had been exploring in earlier works on politics, religion, feminism, and creative evolution, he reached the height of his fame as a dramatist. Fascinated by the story of Joan of Arc, but unhappy with the way that she had traditionally been depicted, Shaw wanted to remove the whitewash which disfigures her beyond recognition. He presents a realistic Joan, proud, intolerant, naive, foolhardy, and brave, a rebel and a woman for Shaw's time and our own.
I love the commitment to that of telling you nothing what's going on.
This is the best that I could find. Like, obviously, we've had this problem before, but all of the synopses are actually just like, George Bernard Shaw is very famous, and this is one of his famous plays.
Yeah, that's so true.
Like, so...
All right, well, we'll take it. At least it gets into Joan of Arc a bit.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fair... How it's saying he presents her, I think, is very accurate to how he does present her.
Yes, and I also think it operates on the assumption that you know who Joan of Arc is, which most people do.
I will say, and I'll get into this a bit more reading it, like, obviously I know who Joan of Arc is, but I guess I didn't know a lot of the details.
Me neither.
So, that'll be fun to discuss.
Yeah, but first let's discuss George Bernard Shaw. I did not write this down, but apparently famously he just went by Bernard Shaw. I don't know what happened to his legacy to put the George back in.
Maybe there's another Bernard Shaw. I don't know. I've only ever heard him as George Bernard Shaw.
I know. He didn't like the George part. But anyway, so he was born in 1856 into a family that was upper class but poor. Mm-hmm. So genteel poverty is the phrase that was used to describe him. His parents had kind of a rocky-ish marriage. Like, I don't think they ever got divorced, but he ended up living with his mother and his sister in London after his first sister passed away. So it was the 4 of them, and then it became only the 3 of them. Mm-hmm. First, he tried to become a novelist, and that was not really successful.
Incredible.
Then he got kind of a leg up by becoming one of the founding members of something called the Fabian Society. It was a group of socialists who believed that the best way to reform society was not through revolution, but through just kind of permeation of culture.
Okay.
So it was a lot of creative types. It's a very interesting idea that I feel like you don't often see in a socialist group.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
So though through someone he knew in the Fabian Society, he got a job as a drama critic, and then he started writing plays kind of through that. I feel like this is worthy of a whole podcast episode on a different podcast.
Okay.
But he had like a weird relationship with his wife. So he married, around this time, a woman named Charlotte Payne Townsend. Apparently they never had sex.
Bonus episode where we talk about his relationship with his wife.
Yeah. I think she was gay and like didn't want to get married and have children. Okay. And was upfront about like, I don't want to do that. And then he, I think like just had sex like a couple times in his life and was like, this isn't really like for me.
Oh.
So he like cheated on her. Maybe it was an agreement. He was like outside of the marriage.
Open, you know?
But they were like, the way that he was doing that was just by writing like long, intimate letters to like other women.
Like emotional affairs. Okay.
Yeah, like, but they were just not interested in sleeping with each other, and him not really with anyone else. So
all right, wow.
Everyone that I could find like info on this just acted like it was super normal, which it is. It's not, you know.
Yeah, I mean, lavender marriages.
But there was just no like description about.
There was no more information.
No, and I was hoping for more. So at this time, you know, he's writing plays, he's getting successful. Saint Joan in particular was first performed in 1923. Apparently, he had toyed with the idea of writing a Joan of Arc play before, but when she was canonized in 1920, that kind of sparked the inspiration for him.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then he passed away in 1950, having written about 60 plays, a handful of novels, and a lot of political material.
Okay.
Prior to that, he won the Nobel Prize. So I do want to say he is our third Nobel Prize winner?
Second with T.S. Eliot?
He's a Nobel Prize winner. But I separated out his Nobel Prize stuff because it was all super weird. So, First of all, he was given the 1925 Nobel Prize in Literature. Through some weird, like, loophole, I think based on the description of, like, requirements that the Nobel Committee had set up to, like, you have to meet these minimum requirements to win the Nobel, like, in its early years.
Okay.
None of the people nominated in 1925, like, met the requirements. So there was a rule that was like, if you don't meet this requirement, we'll still give you your Nobel Prize, but not until the year after.
Sure.
So he won the 1925 Nobel Prize. They didn't give it to him until 1926.
Okay.
Which in and of itself is a wrinkle. But then he tried to decline it. He just like was like, I don't want it. The quote that I wrote down was, I can forgive Nobel for inventing dynamite, but only a fiend in human form could have invented the Nobel Prize.
Do we know why?
I think, frankly, he just says, like, he likes to say contradictory things.
He just wants to, like, be subversive?
I think so. Like, I think he's just wants to be seen as, like, an out there kind of guy.
All right.
So then eventually he was like, okay, fine, you can give me the Nobel Prize, but I don't want the money. I want you to donate the money for, like, Irish literacy. Which is
hell yeah.
However, again, in the rules, they were like, well, there's no provision for us to do something else with the money. So we're going to give you the money.
And you do it.
And then we will all work together to figure it out. So I read like an article in the New York Times from like 1926 of George Bernard Shaw being like, I would like to clarify. I am holding the money. I am not keeping the money.
Incredible. Okay, yeah. Sure.
So he was up until 2016, George Bernard Shaw was the only person to have the Nobel Prize for Literature and an Oscar.
Wow.
Yes, because he won an Oscar as part of the My Fair Lady film.
Oh.
Okay. Or maybe...
Which?
Actually, no, I'm sorry. I think I lied to you. I don't think it was for the My Fair Lady film. I think it was just for the film of Pygmalion. Like, they adapted the play straight, not the musical.
That's actually devastating because the My Fair Lady film is on the Best Movie poster.
Okay, let me double check. Okay, confirmed it was for Pygmalion.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry. You can still watch My Fair Lady, but it's only somewhat related to this.
Okay.
Yeah. So then he was the only person to have those two until 2016 when the Nobel Prize in Literature went to Bob Dylan. And he already had an Oscar for a song for a movie that I don't remember right now.
Okay.
You can send us an email if you remember. So, with all of that said, have you read George Bernard Shaw before?
No.
Okay. Me neither. I think maybe we read like an excerpted scene from Pygmalion.
I can't think of anything.
I don't know. His most other famous plays, I feel like these are ones that I've heard of, but not seen or read, include Pygmalion, Major Barbara, Man and Superman, and Caesar and Cleopatra.
Well, maybe I just know the name George Bernard Shaw.
Probably.
And none of his works.
Yeah. So, there we go. Would you like to give our disclaimer?
Certainly. Our judgments come based on the play and characters within the play rather than any real historical figures they may have been based on, which we're definitely dealing with here. And spoilers ahead for the story of Joan of Arc.
Yeah. Spoiler, Joan of Arc dies.
Spoiler, this is her life.
Yeah. So this is, I feel like, very set apart from all the other plays that we've read so far this season. I feel like it was very different.
You have written down it was the most book-like.
Yes.
And absolutely agreed. This was a very wordy one.
Yes. It was a lot of dialogue. Like, the stage directions and descriptions were very specific. Like, the one for scene 1 literally was like, there is a small wooden stool by the window. There is a chair to the left of the window. Like, I was like, are people going to have to actually do this when they're staging this play? The dialogue is really long.
Well, actually, if I can sidebar for a second, I have a question for you as someone who's done theater.
Yeah.
How accurately are any of those stuck to, like, in your experience? Just stage directions.
I don't know. I feel like I can't. I'm sure less when you're doing it as like a high school or a college just because you don't have the resources. Mm-hmm. But really, I think they tend to be minimal, at least in other plays. Okay. Sometimes because they're like, they only put down the stuff that's required for the scene. They only say like, there's a table and it has eggs on it. If you have to go and pick up the eggs.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I gotcha.
So, who knows? But yeah, and I was not anticipating that, but I didn't mind reading it.
Yeah.
Interestingly, actually, I liked reading this a lot. I'm going to tip my hand and say I will come out as a Saint Joan enjoyer. But I actually don't know if I would want to see a production of this.
I agree with you, but that's because I'm a Saint Joan midder. I thought it was mid.
Yeah. As far, like, I enjoyed reading it. I think the prose was nice. I liked the structure and all. But it's a lot of talking. There's not a lot of scenes. And even though I liked them, I can't say the scenes are very different from one another.
It was a lot. What I struggled with and what kind of like, well, there were, like, I think 2 main things that really turned me off of this, and I'll get to the second one much later. But the first is just like every scene we were meeting new characters who were talking so like blocks of kind of like what we called out with Galileo, I think.
Yeah.
Like big blocks. And I just like couldn't keep the character straight. There were so many of them, and they weren't on the page long enough or on the stage long enough for me to really get a sense. Aside from Joan, who I did enjoy reading, and aside from some of the characters who like I liked the king, I liked his lines, things like that.
Yeah, there were only Joan was in every scene, and other than that, there were only like maybe 2 or 3 characters that were in more than one scene.
Yes, it was very interesting.
This play there's 6 scenes and the epilogue. Mm-hmm. So again, brief, but you're right. Like every single scene puts us in a new location with new people. Joan is never talking first. It's always people talking about Joan first, and then Joan comes in. I also didn't realize until the last scene before the epilogue, which is Joan's trial, that like years have passed.
Yeah, I was, and to George Bernard Shaw's credit, he does put the years in that big descriptor at the beginning of the scenes. I was not reading that closely to keep track of it.
No, I had to flip back and forth at one point to be like, wait, what year was it when we started?
And I wonder how that would be displayed in a production of this.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't think you know, because it's not like in 1776 where they helpfully have the calendar that they're taking numbers off
I was going to say, do you think they had the calendar?
I mean, I think every play should have the calendar.
Agreed.
Yeah, but it is blocky. So I don't know how I would feel seeing it, frankly, because I think it would be really slow.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed reading it because, frankly, I was like, it's kind of a book.
Yeah.
It's kind of a book. Mm-hmm. And I liked it. I was expecting it to be really serious, and it was, especially towards the end. But a lot of it was really funny, and I wasn't expecting it to be
even
funny.
Right off the bat, like, the dialogue was just pretty humorous, like, kind of opening immediately.
Yeah, I mean, because the first passage is some rich guy, again, in his page, and the rich guy is like, what the hell, like, why aren't the eggs laying? And the page is like, well, you can kill me if you want, but I can't get you eggs, you know? And that's the very first, like, you don't even know at that point, unless you know the title, that it's a play about Joan of Arc.
Unless you know what you are reading/watching.
Yeah, until the page starts being like, this weird girl must be cursing all of the hens.
I did like that, and I did like that as soon as she left the farm, like, they immediately started laying hens again. He's like, oh shit.
Oh yeah, because that's God's will, baby.
So I did find a lot of it humorous, but I just think overall it was like trying to keep track of the characters and just like where we were in time was kind of a drag for me. It slowed me down.
Yeah.
From what I do think was a very interesting story. And I kind of feel like almost in Galileo, Galileo, this was much bigger of an issue.
Yes.
But there were a lot of important scenes missing,
mm-hmm.
like his Inquisition and all of that. At least we get like the trial, but we don't even get the coronation where she's present at. We don't really get too many details about her Inquisition and all of that. I don't know. I thought there were some important stuff missing in this as well.
It's interesting because I feel like I totally get that. I didn't have that feeling when I was reading it. And I think it's just because I think the emphasis here is on like the miracle that she can accomplish what she does.
Yeah.
So every scene is not like her actually doing the thing. It's overcoming the barriers to doing the thing. Like,
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
not about like defeating the English at Orleans. It's about, which is I'm sure not how you say that with a French accent. But it's about convincing them to give her soldiers to lead.
No, I agree with that. And it's not like I wanted this play to be longer, but it was less so the battle stuff and more like the biggest one for me was the coronation. We
should have had.
We get her like praying, I believe, immediately after.
Yeah,
or immediately before, something like that. And that one I think was a miss not to have.
It's like everyone else has left the cathedral and she's the only one still there.
That was the biggest one for me, which is why I say Galileo, that was a much bigger issue.
Yeah. Especially because it was a little more boring. And then when you're like, finally, the only interesting thing that's ever happened to him.
And then we don't get that thing.
And then you don't see it. But yeah, I think we both agree that this was a very nice characterization of Joan of Arc as a character.
Yeah.
So
I know you're about to make a point, but to cut you off before you do.
No.
As I said when we talked about the synopsis, I think that was an accurate depiction of how he portrays Joan. I like that he didn't shy away from the fact that like she was naive and she was just like overly confident, and that was a lot of what turned people off of her at the time.
Yeah. And I feel like nowadays we have hindsight being 2020 about Joan of Arc. Like we know what happens to Joan of Arc.
Yeah.
And so she gets portrayed often, I feel like, as being like really serene, really like calm and collected, you know. But in this, she's like very out there. She doesn't hesitate. She's like clearly a warrior. And I liked seeing a little bit more of a different idea of what Joan of Arc was like. Obviously, we'll never know what Joan of Arc was like, but this seemed slightly more real to me. Like I could sink my teeth into it a little bit more.
Absolutely.
And she was funny. Like people would be like deadpanning, like, oh, you want to go with 10 soldiers to take this fort that the English have had for years. And she's just like, well, yeah, like St. Catherine says we can do it. So obviously I do want to do that.
Yes, I did like that.
So yeah, I think that this was not, like, to me, a super groundbreaking play.
Yeah.
I'll have a little bit more to say in historical accuracy about some things that I found about the themes. But overall, I enjoyed reading it. And I was happy to have a play coming off of Life of Galileo that I enjoyed a little bit more that was based on a historical figure getting persecuted by the Catholic Church.
I will say we haven't even talked about the epilogue.
We haven't even talked about the epilogue. The epilogue is kind of weird.
The epilogue was my other big issue with this play. I thought it was so I don't like this kind of epilogue. I thought it was so cringy.
I did not like it as much as the rest of the play. I didn't think that it matched in tone. It didn't bother me that much. I will say the final line of the play was a little bit perplexing to me in terms of like,
can you remind me
theme.
What it was?
It's something about like, when will Earth be ready to receive her saints or something?
Oh yeah, it was a little. Yeah, now that you say that, I remember that ending line, and it was a little strange.
Yeah, they lost me a little bit there because I was like, okay.
But basically,
like,
what's happening is the king is like dreaming, and Joan's ghost is there, and then a couple other ghosts, and then eventually a ghost from the 1920s is there, and I did like that they're like, what are you wearing? You look ridiculous. But then Joan like learns what happens and that she is canonized and all of that. I don't like that. I liked better the ending of the scene before, where it was kind of the theme of like, it's not the last of her, it's only the beginning.
Yes.
I thought that was more powerful note to end on, personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, like, you're not going to make me feel bad for Joan of Arc because she's a saint. You can make me feel bad for her because she got burned at the stake.
Yeah.
Like, obviously I feel bad for her about that. But, like, the woe is me, no one thinks about me anymore, like, that's kind of not true. I feel like people think about Joan of Arc.
Also, it just doesn't feel like it's fitting with how she's depicted in this show.
Yeah, especially if it was written in, like, 1922. Like, that is a particular time when people were thinking about Joan of Arc.
Absolutely.
And, like, proud of her and
absolutely.
Shit. So, yeah. I mean, I did kind of like the interesting thing of she was like, oh my gosh, you guys, should I perform a miracle and come back to life now that I'm a saint? And one by one, all the people who had supported her in life were basically like, no.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's interesting just because it is very, like, out of sight, out of mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it brings the class and the gender back into it. But I think those were not necessarily, that wasn't a strong theme throughout the rest of the play, like, out of sight, out of mind. So the epilogue, I wouldn't necessarily get rid of it, but it was the weakest part to me.
Yeah. Agreed.
So you might get rid of it.
I might get rid of it. Yeah. Or I would redo it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
It is nice to see, at least, I don't know if you need a whole epilogue just to do this, but, like, Joan's whole crusade was to place Charles VII on the throne.
Yeah.
And in the epilogue, he's like an old king. So at least you're like, oh,
it did work. Yeah.
The thing she gave up her life for worked. So good for her.
Yeah, this was all kind of fine.
You need a hit really bad.
I need a hit it's been one of my highlights been this season. Honestly, in hindsight, I think back more fondly. I when we read the piano lesson, I was like, I'm probably not going to think about this, but I have been thinking about it.
Oh my gosh, you're like, I miss you. Like, I treated you so dirty. Please forgive me.
Even when we were talking about it, and that episode just came out today as of filming, and I didn't listen to the episode, but I think even when we were talking about it, I was like, actually, I'm being way too harsh on this.
And you didn't even know.
And I didn't even
what was
know.
To come.
Take me back to Amadeus. Take me back to Ford's Theater, 1776.
No, honestly. At least the silver lining is now people listening to this season will be like, oh, they're not just homophobic. They dislike other books too.
They also hate theater. So they're actually double homophobic.
Gay people and the arts.
Oh, God.
Okay, let's go into historical accuracy.
Before we do, one final thing that is, like, not really related to Saint Joan. I don't think we've been keeping the audience updated on the number of plays that, since reading, we have tried to look for productions of in the area and found ones that ended 2 to 3 months ago. This was another one.
Yeah. So I think right now we're at maybe, like, genuinely, like, 75%.
Yeah, let me look real fast because this one, not Life of Galileo. This one, Murder in the Cathedral. I think Amadeus, I think King John, and then obviously 1776.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ford's Theater, for actually waiting for us to be ready. I mean, we did plan it around you.
We did plan it around Ford's Theater, so.
Yeah. And I will say, something that I found, I don't know why, maybe it's because they have, like, good science museums or something. They're only putting on Life of Galileo in Chicago. So if you're in Chicago, you can go see it if you want.
Pod trip to see Galileo.
Honestly.
Oh my God, next time Jen goes to visit her family, Jen, you have to take your family to see this show.
What do they call it? A war correspondent. That's what she could be.
She's on the front lines.
Exactly.
Anyways.
She'd be deployed to Naperville.
I have nothing else to actually say about Saint Joan.
Okay. Well, I will say, my historical accuracy, it's okay. It's kind of a mishmash of things. Frankly, it's one of those things where a lot of the history in and of itself in the play is, like, minutia. And I don't feel that it's useful for me to, break it down point by point. I will say, so basically all of the minor characters that have names are real. Okay. And by that I mean, like, the page is obviously just made up. Mm-hmm. But when Joan goes up to, like, a guy who's a titled duke and is like, may I have horses? It was a real duke that she did meet. Okay. So all of that tracks. Okay. So Joan of Arc was just a girl from the country. Her drive was French nationalism. She was very much like France for the French, get the English out of here. And in the play, they really emphasize St. Catherine as being one of the voices that she hears.
And I just looked it up to clarify. That is St. Catherine of Alexandria. There are a number of St. Catherines.
Oh, okay. Because I was thinking Siena, because she's the one that I know.
I wrote a very good paper on St. Catherine of Siena in one of my women in religious history classes. But I think they were, because St. Catherine of Siena, I believe they were like probably overlapping time periods. And that's why I looked.
Well, because the saints, you would know this, like a lot of them pile up on each other, right? Like the bulk of them are from roughly a similar kind of time period.
Well, not a lot of them.
Not like alive at the same time, but like there's a narrower
of them. Yeah. And I think St. Catherine of Siena would have been alive. I don't know when she was canonized.
Okay. So they do also mention, though, the other two who are St. Michael and Margaret. There's probably multiples of those. Michael's and Margaret's.
Michael's probably the archangel, I would imagine.
The good one.
I would imagine the best Saint Michael. I would imagine there are multiple Saint Margarets. There is like a saint for most names that you can think of.
Well, you can look up which one it is if you want to. I didn't, and I'm not gonna.
Actually, hang on. It's probably still open in my Google search. And by Google search, I mean unfortunately the AI preview I'm looking at. Saint Michael the Archangel and Saint Margaret of Antioch.
Okay, there you go. Those are the saints. In the play, actually, we don't see this part like you have carefully pointed out. So I guess we don't know for sure what George Bernard Shaw wrote as happening. But in the play, Joan is like, I'm going to crown Charles VII myself. Mm-hmm. And she did not crown him in real life, but she was there.
Yeah.
But she did not do the actual, like, placing the crown on his head. But she was there. This actually was a very good scene in the play, and it did happen in real life, which I was surprised by. I didn't think so. When Joan is on trial, and they're like, okay, if you won't recant your heresy, we'll just torture you.
They're going to show her the instruments like they did Galileo.
Exactly. They're like, we will torture you. And she's like, well, you shouldn't torture me because A, I'm not going to take back what I said because I don't believe that I'm a heretic. And B, she's like, I'm telling you right now that if I do take it back, it's just because you're torturing me. And then when you stop torturing me, I'll take it back again. And they were like, okay, fair point. And so they just didn't torture her because they were like, you're right. It'll be a useless exercise.
I feel like that they should carry that lesson forward because I feel like that is many such cases.
No, well, like, there's the argument against torture that it's like unethical and, blah, blah, blah. And then there's the argument that's like, it also doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, Anyway, but points for Joan for wiggling her way out of being tortured. So in the play, they basically present her with a piece of paper and they're like, here's an admittance of guilt. We won't kill you if you sign it. And in the play, she did, which kind of surprised me. I was like, that doesn't seem like something she would do. But she did in real life sign it. In the play, they basically told her, okay, great. Now this just means that you get life in prison. And then she tore it up on the spot. In real life, they escorted her back to prison. And then later, when they were just like questioning her, she was like, I wish I hadn't done that because the saints told me that it was a bad idea. So then they were like, okay, so you're still doing this talking to the saints bullshit. We're going to burn you at the stake anyway.
Okay.
So it kind of was like, she did take it back in a way, but it was not like ripping it up on the spot because she didn't want to go to prison. It's like a different thing. So now I just want to talk a teeny bit about the themes of the play from the perspective of George Bernard Shaw.
Okay.
He made a big point of saying this is a play with no villains.
Okay.
Which is interesting because it's a play about a teenage girl getting burned at the stake. But he was like, the tragedy of it is not that there was like an evil person doing evil. The tragedy of it is that everyone involved thought they were doing the right thing.
I see that.
Yeah. So, like, the guy who's the executioner even is not even being presented as being cartoonishly evil. They're all just like, this is the proper thing that you do for a heretic.
Yeah.
And Joan of Arc obviously is like, I'm not a heretic. The men all around her are like, well, we believe in her, but there's nothing we can do to stop the judicial process, et cetera, et cetera. And so that is the tragedy that, like, normal operations have allowed a thing like this to happen, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, I think so.
He got a lot of flack for that from like modern critics at his time, because obviously that's like a modern applicable theme.
Yeah.
It's not like there's a lot of background noise in here. It's not that there's like only, you know, Joan of Arc era wrongs and everyone has been fine since then. So people were like, oh, we're so sick of you dragging real life issues into your plays.
Okay, but that's how all art works.
Well, now it does. Apparently not back then. So I think that that was funny. But anyway, so I will close out with a quote from George Bernard Shaw. The tragedy of such murders is that they are not committed by murderers. They are judicial murders, pious murders, and this contradiction at once brings an element of comedy into the tragedy. The angels may weep at the murder, but the gods laugh at the murderers. So, interesting.
All right. Thanks, George Bernard Shaw.
Yeah.
Or as we say,
Bernard Shaw.
Star calculator?
Let's calculate.
All right. I'll go first. You know, fucking 5 for historical accuracy. Like, that was kind of... Did I give that to Life of Galileo? No, I only gave Life of Galileo a 4. That's crazy.
Oh, because they, like, made up basically a whole new character for the daughter.
Oh, yeah, that's why. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this one, they didn't do that. And it was the story of her life, and it seems like the things that changed, like the, you know, her going back to the jail cell, was just kind of speeding the plot along, which, fine.
Yeah.
Originality. This is our third, this is totally on us, but this is our third in the row Catholic persecution. And you know I love a Catholic persecution story, but that is not...
How original is it?
Oh, God, only a 3, I think. At least this one's about a woman. Characters, I thought Joan was strong and I liked the king, but I think there were way too many characters. It almost had She Who Became the Sun syndrome of too many named characters who were real people.
Yes, delete some.
Which I like how that has just, She Who Became the Sun syndrome is just like a thing, even though I really like that book and I still really like that one.
Even though you didn't even agree with me.
Prose, yeah, prose was fine. 4. I almost put 34. Whoa. 4.
That would really skew your results.
The vibes, 2. I don't. I lied when I said I would never think about the piano lesson. I don't even think I used that harsh of words. I said I probably wasn't going to think about it much more. This one I really don't think I'm ever going to think about ever again. It's a 3.2. It was fine. I don't know if my experience would have been improved seeing it, and I cannot say the same for others this season. But overall, it was fine. I'm glad I read it in my life. I'm glad this is a work of art I'm familiar with.
There you go. That's a lovely way to put it. All right, for me, historical accuracy, I am going to go 4, just kind of a classic Grace 4.
You are so hard to please.
You know. Originality, I'm also going to go 4, and my justification for that is she had, like, just been canonized when he wrote this.
Okay.
So I'm like, you know, like, is it original to write stuff about Joan of Arc? Not really. But, like, he was seizing a moment. So I'll give him credit for that.
That's much more fair, but I'm not changing mine.
No, that's fine. Characters. You know, this might seem high. I'm actually going to go 4 for this. Because I really liked Joan. I also really liked Charles, who's the king. I thought he was characterized in a really interesting kind of way. Where he was, like, timid but on her side. And I don't know. He just seemed like a nuanced character. And the other characters themselves individually weren't particularly standouts, but I thought George Bernard Shaw really sold me on the way, especially the ones that were like believers in Joan, on how Joan was able to get them on her side.
Yes.
Like, it didn't seem contrived, like that worked for me, and I feel like that's a tricky thing to write. So I'm going to give the credit where it's due and put that in characters. Prose, also 4. Am I giving 4s across the board? I think I am.
Vibes of 4?
Yeah. I think it's just 4s across the board. I gave this a 4.25 on Storygraph. And that's a fine leaning 5 for me. I enjoyed this. And it's not going to be at the top of my list for the season, but it's going to be in the top half of my list for the season.
You want to hear crazy?
What?
Something crazy? So far, you have 3 even 4s.
What are the other ones?
Do you have any guesses?
No. There's only like 3 other plays, but no.
King John.
Okay, I liked King John.
And Murder in the Cathedral.
Wow.
Neither of them were a 4 across the board.
But they averaged out.
But they averaged to be an exact 4. So...
Well, you guys are really going to be chomping at the bit to get my final season total ranking to see how I put those in order, aren't you?
When I come on the finale and I say everything was a fine.
Well.
This might be our most disparate season ranking.
Maybe.
I think.
And I don't even think it'll be partially because we have wildly different opinions, but it might be just because they're so bunched up together in the middle.
Yeah, that might be it too.
We'll see.
Anyways, what are we reading next week, and will it break my streak?
Next week, we are reading Viet Gone by Queen Nguyen.
And it will break the streak about being about Catholicism.
There are no Catholics, as far as I am aware, in Viet Gone.
There we go.
So, in the meantime, you should follow us on our social medias, Instagram and Twitter at @fiverflop_pod. And as of next week, we will be halfway through the season. So that is a great time to join the Storygraph Reading Challenge. And you can find that in the bios of any of our social medias.
You can also find the recommendation form in our bios. So if you have, I don't know, other stuff about Saint Joan, if you want us to read the Saint Joan play by the author of Life of Galileo, please do not recommend that to us.
Because we probably won't.
Because I can almost certainly say we will not. Although we wouldn't have to do the author or the history section.
Ooh, okay, so if we really need a quick episode, maybe we will.
So, possibly. But anyways, or you can just shoot us an email at fiverfloppodcast@gmail.com. And until next time.
Happy reading!
Bye!